Okay, here we have the PIR sensor. It's a infrared sensor, and what it really senses is motion. So there's 3 pins. There's ground, power, and an output. That output is going to be a digital output, which means that we're going to get a 0 when it detects no motion and a 1 when we detect motion. There's a little bit of a delay. When it detects motion, it takes about, I don't know, a quarter of a second maybe before it starts to output a signal. Maybe not quite as long, but then it holds that high signal for quite a while, about 5 seconds I bet. After it no longer senses motion during those 5 seconds, then it turns back off and it will immediately be ready to sense a signal again. So you get a high signal for about 5 seconds. So let's wire this PIR sensor up to the breadboard and the Arduino. I'm just going to take those 3 prongs, place them into the breadboard, make sure they're not in the same row, and I'm going to follow along. The ground needs to go to ground, so I'm just going to come to ground on my breadboard itself. The VCC is going to need to go to 5 volts. Come over here to 5 volts, and finally the last one is going to go to an output, and it's going to go to a digital output. So I'm going to come across my Arduino here over to the other side and place it in. I just use pin 10 there. So I'll need to set up my program appropriately. So I've created a new sketch here, and I want to use the PIR sensor. I want to see the values that I get. So the first thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need a constant that calls out which number of pin I'm in. So I'm going to call this constant PIR. That's the sensor value. And I'm going to set it equal to 10 for the port that I plugged it into. Also going to want to get a value, so I'm going to call this one PIR val, and I'm going to make that an integer, but this is not a constant. This is actually a value that we're going to store and see what the value is inside of our program. In the void setup, I'm going to run pin mode and set that PIR pin to be an input. Capitalize all your input there. And I'm also going to open our serial connection. Again, that is how we were able to see between the Arduino and the data that whatever our sensors are grabbing. So it's serial.begin. Make sure you capitalize serial. And then we're going to put 9600 in parentheses. Inside our loop, what are we going to do? We're going to read a value from our PIR sensor. So we're going to do a digital read of our PIR, and we're going to take that value. We're going to take that value and we're going to put it inside the PIR val variable that we just created. So it's storing that, and then we're going to display it. The way that we're going to display it is through the serial communication. So capitalize your S there, serial, and I'm going to type dot, and it's print, and then LN for line, and that LN is really like a carriage return, and then it will print whatever the heck you type in here. If we typed in those letters, it would just type in those letters and display those. But we want to actually have a value, so we're going to give it the variable PIR val, and it's going to then print that in our communication mode, serial mode. Last thing I'm going to add is a little bit of a delay, just because it will write as fast as possible. It will write at 9600 bytes, or not bytes, bits per second, 9600 baud. So I'm going to put in about a quarter of a second of wait time there. And I should be able to just take this program, upload it, and then see the values that I get. I probably do not have I do have it in the right port. So let's just upload this, see what happens. So I should be running my program right here on the PIR sensor. You can see my hand coming into frame here. If I move it around, I can barely see that there is a little bit of a faint red light that appears in the PIR sensor. If we hooked up our LED, we could get another output. Let's do that later. But let's see and verify that that value is changing. If I come back over here to my serial monitor, it's under Tools. Should run and be showing me a 0. So I try and get all these synced at once. You can see those zeros rolling down. If I put my hand in front of it, I should get a 1, and it will stay a 1 for a little while after my hand has disappeared. It is still on, it is still giving a high value. That's just the way that that sensor works. Again, it was 0, I tossed my hand in front of there, and it is now a 1. Alright, let's edit this code to add an LED, so the LED also lights up when we sense some motion. So I'm going to add another constant, and I'll call that one cleverly LED. I'll put that one in pin 2. I don't really need anything. I need to call another pin mode here and call my pin mode for LED, if I can type correctly. That's an output. And now I can write, let's do it before the delay. We'll put in an if statement. So if PIR val equals 1, so that will check and see if PIR val is high. It will, let's put a bracket in there, it will digital write LED high, so it will turn on our LED. Otherwise, or else, it will digital write our LED low. One neat little trick here that you can do is you can hit Control T, and that's going to format everything for you so that you can see where there's open and closed brackets. That'll help you with your coding. I need to pause and hook up my LED accordingly, and then we can test this program. So I've uploaded my sketch to the Arduino, and I now have hooked up my LED appropriately. I'm going to try to avoid tripping the sensor right now. I have, coming from the pin itself to the positive leg of the LED, going to have a resistor coming back to ground and coming back over to ground on the Arduino. I also replaced my ground from the PIR sensor itself, coming back to just a common ground here, moving the common ground there. So I think if I place my hand in front of there, I should get a light, and you can barely see that that light does come on, and it stays on for about 5 seconds. There it goes. So it totally works. That's how we can control one value with another.